Hey everyone! So I want to start by recommending this video on the Insight Check YouTube channel where Jeremy explains how the stun condition is really hard to remove, making it potentially broken when it's applied with an extended duration. It was a good deep dive into that condition, and it made me realize that I don't think I've seen anyone rank the impact of each condition based on its mechanics. And considering that as a player, we often have options for what conditions to apply when we, pick our spells or our features, I figured it would be a good exercise to go through the conditions and rank their mechanics based on how impactful they are. Now, I am going to be doing the rankings based on the mechanics of the conditions, and that's it. Because if I start including, how easy they are to apply or remove, the waters get murky. Like, Exhaustion is difficult to remove, especially multiple levels. Yet, there are spells and effects that apply Exhaustion that end much easier. So, I'm really just concentrating on the impact of the conditions, and that's it. But, speaking of Exhaustion, it's not really one condition, is it? Exhaustion level 4 and Exhaustion level 1 are quite different in their impact. So I will be treating each level of exhaustion as its own condition, and I'm going to be ranking them separately. And speaking of conditions, my ability to make this video is conditional on the support of viewers like yourself. Many of you already support this channel through Patreon, and thank you so much. But I've had some requests from viewers who would like to support this content through YouTube membership. So that option is now available. You can click the join button, get a membership badge and some cool emojis, or if you'd rather support through Patreon, as always, a link is in the video description. So the ranking of conditions will be the ones with the least negative impact if applied to the most. So here we go. In position 20 is, kind of obvious, invisible. So invisible is a special case because it's the one condition that you probably want to have. Conditions otherwise are bad, at least generally, for the one under the condition. An invisible creature is impossible to see without the aid of magic or a special sense. For the purpose of hiding, the creature is heavily obscured. The creature's location can be detected by any noise it makes or any tracks it leaves. Attack rolls against the creature have disadvantage, and the creature's attack rolls have advantage. Now, for all its advantages, I will point out there are some downsides to being invisible that have to do with your allies not being able to see you either. So don't expect to get a healing word, or be excluded from Spirit Guardians, or the Evoker's Fireball, because those all require the ability to see the target. But what I think we can all probably agree is that being invisible is usually good, not bad. So now on to the conditions that are actually bad to have. But some aren't that bad, like our number 19 entry, Deafened. A deafened creature can't hear and automatically fails any ability check that requires hearing. Okay, so, if it's a super long duration or something, it could potentially prevent you from detecting enemies, which could potentially surprise you in combat, and that would be bad. But if we're just talking about in combat, needing to hear, it's just not going to come up most of the time. There's the bard, they won't be able to give you inspiration, that requires the target be able to hear the bard, but for the most part, you're really not going to feel being deafened. So we're in some pretty minor effects as we go to number 18, Exhaustion level 1. It gives you disadvantage on ability checks. Really, the worst thing about Exhaustion 1 is that it's the gateway to higher levels of exhaustion, which are worse. But if you get one level of exhaustion, it's normally not that big a deal. The worst part is if you're exhausted when you roll initiative, because it will give you disadvantage since initiative is a dexterity ability check. In combat though, unless you're dealing with grapples, either initiating them or avoiding them, ability checks normally just aren't coming up. Most D20 rolls in combat are attack rolls and saving throws. And number 17, Charmed. A charmed creature can't attack the charmer or target the charmer with harmful abilities or magical effects. The charmer has advantage on any ability check to interact socially with the creature. It's usually not the charm condition that's the problem if you have it. It's usually added effects, like the ability to command a creature that you have charmed. But we're not evaluating Dominate Person. We're evaluating the charmed condition itself. And honestly, it's not that bad. Out of combat, it's advantage on ability checks to interact socially. That's pretty minor. And if it's your character that's charmed, it's really nothing beyond what you want it to be, since social interaction ability checks towards your character normally aren't binding. You can still act how you want. In combat, the charmed creature can't attack the creature who charmed it, which is certainly inconvenient, but that doesn't prevent the charmed creature from still contributing. They can still take the help action to help an ally attack you, or heal an ally, or buff them, or attack one of your allies. So if there aren't any additional riders, Charmed is actually pretty minor. That brings us to number 16, Exhaustion level 2. So you have disadvantage on ability checks and your speed is halved. Even 2 levels of Exhaustion really isn't that bad. We've already talked about the impact of disadvantage on ability checks, but we add on moving at half speed, which is definitely inconvenient, but I'm sure we can all agree it's a lot better than not being able to move at all. And most of the things that we, or a creature affected by this condition, can do in combat aren't affected at all. Number 15, Prone. A prone creature's only movement option is to crawl, which gives you half movement, unless it stands up and thereby ends the condition. The creature has disadvantage on attack rolls, and an attack roll against the creature has advantage if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature, otherwise the attack roll has disadvantage. If I was considering how easy conditions are to remove, prone would be even lower on this list because normally it's just a case of standing up using half your movement. But if we're evaluating just the impact of the condition, needing to crawl basically puts you at half movement, which is definitely better than not being able to move at all, then attack rolls against a prone creature are made with advantage if the attacker is within 5 feet. Otherwise, it's disadvantage. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. Even melee attacks using reach have disadvantage. So it's debatable how bad this part of the condition even is. Really, it depends. Sure, if you're surrounded, that's not going to be pretty. But if the enemies are at a distance, this could even be an advantage for you. And I often do see ranged characters falling prone on purpose, though I have also seen that strategy backfire. Really, the biggest issue is making attacks with disadvantage. And now we're getting into stuff that really hurts in combat. Now, if you cast spells, or do something else besides attacking in combat, those things are still fine, but a lot of creatures do rely on attacks, and disadvantage on those attacks is a pretty big penalty. And number 14, Poisoned. A poisoned creature has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. So now we're talking about disadvantage on both, which means if you have the choice of grappling or making standard attacks, you're screwed up either way. We're getting into conditions that are pretty effective if you can apply them to your enemies. And yes, lots of enemies are outright immune to being poisoned, but that's not what we're ranking here. And number 13, Grappled. A grappled creature's speed becomes 0, and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. The condition ends if the grappler is incapacitated. The condition also ends if an effect removes the grappled creature from the reach of the grappler, or a grappling effect, such as when a creature is hurled away by the Thunderwave spell. So, like prone, grappled is often a pretty easy condition to remove. You just need to move the grappled creature out of reach of the grappler. This could be as simple as the grappled creature shoving the grappler 5 feet away, or an ally grappling them and dragging them out of reach. But again, I'm not ranking these based on how easily they're removed, and if a creature is grappled, that is a big problem. Half movement in combat is an inconvenience, but no movement, that's devastating. Grappled creatures can also be dragged by the grappler. It's not listed under the condition, but it's part of it. And the grappler, I guarantee they aren't dragging you anywhere that you want to be. In fact, grappling is good enough that often characters, or even entire parties, are built around the ability to utilize grapple. And that can be really, really effective. So we're in proper, just bad conditions now. Number 12, Frightened. A frightened creature has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls while the source of its fear is within line of sight. The creature can't willingly move closer to the source of its fear. So we're combining the effects of the poison condition with a pretty severe movement restriction. This can be really awful. Melee characters can be rendered utterly useless, but even with ranged attacks, you have significant hindrances. That movement thing can also leave you trapped if you can't move away because of barriers or that kind of thing. Frightened, like Charmed, often has additional riders, but even without any riders, Frightened is still a pretty bad condition to be under. Number 11, Blinded. A blinded creature can't see and automatically fails any ability check that requires sight. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. So everything is bad here. If your character makes attacks, they're in trouble. If they cast spells, a lot of spells won't be available because they require the ability to see your targets. And your defense is severely hindered. And it doesn't matter if attacks against you are ranged or melee. This condition is bad enough that really powerful characters often combine the darkness spell with Devil's Sight to blind enemies, even though darkness requires concentration and a number of creatures are immune to this condition. Despite those drawbacks, it's still a build a lot of people play. Number 10, Restrained. A restrained creature's speed becomes 0, and it can't benefit from any bonus to its speed. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. The creature has disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. I mean, you don't want to be restrained. Speed of 0 is devastating. Disadvantage on dexterity saves maybe isn't going to be a problem, unless it is, but throw on advantage on attacks against and disadvantage to attacks, and you are just piling a lot of devastation to the restrained creature. Number 9, Exhaustion level 3. You have disadvantage on ability checks, your speed is halved, and you have disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Exhaustion level 3 is the one where exhaustion goes from inconvenient to devastating. So the ability checks, sure, the speed halved, yeah, that hurts, but disadvantage on attack rolls, that's bad, and disadvantage on all saving throws is awful, awful, awful. When you go from Exhaustion 2 to Exhaustion 3, you know that's the moment things just became really bad. It's quite the jump in impact of the condition. Yet, it's only number 9. Because number 8, Incapacitated. An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions. And although this condition doesn't say it in the text right here, it says elsewhere that you can't take bonus actions or legendary actions. Now it's weird, this condition doesn't say that in the text because, you know what, the player's handbook is set up really weird. Honestly, could use an update or something. But the section on bonus actions says you can't take them when you're incapacitated, and the section on legendary actions says that they can't be taken when the creature's incapacitated. So incapacitated really means you can move, and that's it. There are a couple exceptions, like when you have features that don't require any kind of action. Like an incapacitated diviner should still be able to use portent. But for most characters and creatures, incapacitated basically means you're out of the combat entirely. And if you're grappling another creature, that also ends immediately if you're incapacitated. And if you're concentrating on a spell, that also ends immediately if you're incapacitated. Short version, try not to become incapacitated. Yet, there are 7 conditions even worse than that, because at least your defenses are still intact. I mean, your non-reaction defenses anyways, but case in point, number 7, Exhaustion level 4. So we have the disadvantage on ability checks, the halving of speed, the disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws, and your hit point maximum is halved. Now, the jump from Exhaustion 2 to Exhaustion 3 is terrible, and the jump from 3 to 4 honestly isn't as dramatic, but it is still worse. Your hit point maximum is halved. Now, if you're half dead already, that might not be anything. But if you're at full health, you just became twice as easy to finish off. And yes, exhaustion becomes even worse. In fact, number 6 is Exhaustion level 5. Disadvantage on ability checks, disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws, hit point maximum halved, and speed reduced to 0. So yeah, you're boned. You might not be dead yet, but damn, you're easy to finish off in so many ways. I'd say run away, but you can't do that anymore. I hope you have Dimension Door ready to go because you need to leave. And number 5, Stunned. A stunned creature is incapacitated, can't move, and can only speak falteringly. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws, and attack rolls against the creature have advantage. So, we take the brutality of the incapacitated condition, that basically takes you out of the fight, and then we'll add on severe defensive and maneuverability penalties. So now, since you can't move and attacks against you have advantage, that means you're about to become a piñata. Now, fortunately, for the most part, effects that require strength or dexterity saving throws aren't the ones that outright kill you, but expect your hit point total to plummet really soon. Now, as Jeremy from Insight Check points out, the stun condition is really difficult to remove unless, you happen to have a Way of Mercy monk in the party, but that's not what I'm ranking, which is why things are about to get even worse. Number 4, Paralyzed. A paralyzed creature is incapacitated and can't move or speak. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. Attack rolls against a creature have advantage. This is all from stunned, but now let's add in any attack that hits the creature is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature. So basically, you have all the suckage of stunned, but we'll add on auto crits. Melee attackers are going to swarm you like bargain hunters on Black Friday, and you're a big screen TV with limited stock. Now, technically, you aren't dead, but you're gonna be dead pretty soon. Number 3, Petrified. A petrified creature is transformed, along with any non-magical object it is wearing or carrying, into a solid inanimate substance, usually stone. Its weight increases by a factor of 10, and it ceases aging. The creature is incapacitated, can't move or speak, and is unaware of its surroundings. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. The creature has resistance to all damage. The creature is immune to poison and disease, though a poison or disease already in its system is suspended, not neutralized. So, when you're petrified, you're technically not dead, or not even unconscious. But that is kind of a technicality because it is time for you to go watch some TV or something, because technically your character doesn't even know what's happening around them, and they are completely out of the fight. I mean, it could potentially even be argued that Petrified is worse than Death, because Death can be reversed with a 3rd level spell, but Petrified you need greater restoration. The only real upside is at least you do have resistance to damage, so it is unlikely you'll get beaten on like the paralyzed creature. The bad part is, though, that they don't need to beat on you. You're out of the fight. Number 2, Unconscious. An unconscious creature is incapacitated, can't move or speak, and is unaware of its surroundings. The creature drops whatever it's holding and falls prone. The creature automatically fails strength and dexterity saving throws. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and any attack that hits a creature is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of the creature. Okay, so Petrified, but now instead of resistance to damage, attacks within 5 feet do more damage. The only real silver lining is that usually unconscious is easy to remove. So in reality, petrification can often be worse. But nothing gets worse than number 1, Exhaustion 6, Death. So now you are just out of the game. And even if I was to take the ability to remove conditions into account, Exhaustion 6 is just worse than dying normally because none, and I mean none of the spells that bring you back from the dead remove conditions. Even the 9th level True Resurrection. And if it wasn't for the 2018 errata that says being raised from the dead reduces a creature's exhaustion level by 1, you would be unresurrectable. As it is, you come back with 5 levels of exhaustion, which, if you recall, is no picnic. So if you die from exhaustion level 6, it is probably time to concede and make a new character. And exhaustion 6 doesn't care if you had 1,000,000 hit points. You don't have them anymore. And there they are on your screen, ranked in order from least bad to tear up your character sheet and cry. And a quick call out to some of the viewers who support this channel through Patreon. These are supporters at the Mage tier. They see videos early and without YouTube ads, they participate in an exclusive Discord community, and I would like to thank them now. Hey Mr. Wonderful, Babrak, Blue Wolf, John D, Descarpus9, El Conquistadorito, Jared Huberger, John Wayne, Joseph Hall, Joseph Robideau, Joseph Rogers, Wu Carl Kong, Lila Corpsegrave, Michael Michelle, Moxie, Nemo, Paul Suzak, Prometheo NTG, Reichenstahl, Rico, Ryan Wilmot, Shane and Todd Beyond, Starfall, Stephen Meline, Earshine, Third, and Wade. And until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.